Coming up on Phillies Nation, presented by BQ Basement Systems, Pat and Corey talk about the dwindling trade partners for the Phillies as the trade deadline nears. The guys also talk about the alarming numbers Ryan Howard is posting this season. Tommy Green joins us on the mound, and I've got the batter's inbox questions. That's next on Phillies Nation.
Welcome in. This is Phillies Nation on your TV. We are presented by BQ Basement Systems. He's Corey Simon. I am Pat Gallen, and we're here at Fieldhouse Sports and Beer Hall in Center City, Philadelphia. Well, there's a handful of teams out there that have already made trades that have been linked to the Phillies as the trade deadline grows closer. So let's take a look at some of those teams and what they've already done to establish themselves here before the trade deadline hits.
Well, before going through the list of teams, about a month ago, it looked like the Phillies were going to completely control this trade market. It was a seller's market, and the Phillies had arguably the top outfielder on the market in Marlon Byrd, the top two starting pitchers in Cole Hamels and Cliff Lee, maybe the top closer in Jonathan Papelbon, the top middle infielders in Chase Utley and Jimmy Rollins. Right. Fast forward now, we're a couple days away from the deadline. No moves have yet been made by the Phillies. The Giants needed some starting pitching. They got Jake Peavy. They needed some second base help. They signed Dan Uggla. The Yankees keep acquiring spare parts. Chris Capuano, Brandon McCarthy for the rotation. The Angels fill their closer need with Houston Street as opposed to Jonathan Papelbon. The Tigers needed some bullpen help. They got Joaquin Soria from the Rangers. The Mariners, they needed a bat. They got Kendrys Morales back from the Twins. And they've also been linked heavily now to Drew Stubbs, so maybe the Mariners are out of the running for Marlon Byrd. So team by team, needs have been filled, and the Phillies still have their guys.
Okay, well, does that preclude the Phillies from making trades with any of those teams? Not necessarily, but it's going to make it a lot harder. So now that we know that some of these teams are out of the mix, are there any of those teams that could still be in the mix for Phillies players?
The Yankees? I mean, the Yankees do have more rotation depth with Chris Capuano and Brandon McCarthy, but those aren't pieces that are going to lead you to October.
Number 5 starters.
Exactly. So the Yankees still need that frontline starter with Masahiro Tanaka on the DL, with CC Sabathia on the DL, Michael Pineda, Ivan Nova. You know, the Yankees need a frontline starter, so that could be a situation where maybe the Yankees do take Cliff Lee in August, but I don't anticipate a Cliff Lee trade going down before July 31st. Some other teams that might still be in the mix, gotta believe that the Mariners, you know, Kendrys Morales is not all they need.
Right.
And if they can't get Drew Stubbs, Marlon Byrd still makes a lot of sense there. There's some other teams like the Dodgers and the Orioles. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, I was going to ask you because that's about 6 or 7 teams that we've named right there. Are there any teams outside of the list that you just named that still might need someone from the Phillies? I guess the list is dwindling,
yeah,
obviously.
I mean, I guess the Dodgers, because they have so much money and you know, they have some top prospects that might interest the Phillies. The Dodgers have been linked heavily to John Lester in recent days, which kind of doesn't make sense to me because John Lester's already said that he's not really going to re-sign with the team that acquires him. So if I'm LA, I'm more interested in Cole Hamels than John Lester. The Orioles stand out because as the Yankees have made some minor upgrades, the Orioles and Blue Jays have stood pat.
Right.
Maybe a team like the Royals. The Royals have been linked to Marlon Byrd. The Cincinnati Reds have been linked to Marlon Byrd.
Royals are a good team. They want to get over that hump. They haven't been able to.
Right. The thing is, though, is that the Royals and Reds have kind of floundered lately, and they're right around 500, and they're not really true contenders. You know, they need to make some roster augmentations ASAP, but I don't know if they're still going to be buyers. And if the Phillies do make a trade with the Reds, they're going to need to get the top prospect because that's a pretty weak farm system.
I have been asked this question so many times. How many trades do you think the Phillies will end up making before the July 31st deadline? I think it's going to be 2. I think Byrd and Burnett are probably the best, but I can't even say definitively that they'll make 2 trades. Who knows? What do you think?
You know, I think it's going to be 2 as well. I do think A.J. Burnett is going to end up going as soon as the team can figure out the complications of that second-year player option that he has, which is just mind-boggling, all the different things.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, that can happen with it. But, you know, I see Burnett going, and I don't know if it's going to be Marlon Byrd or Jonathan Papelbon, but I think that one of them is going to go. I think that the Phillies ultimately might just say to a team, you know what, just take Papelbon. We'll pay half the salary. We want to clear the space. We want to get Ken Giles in the 9th inning and get rid of Papelbon.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm not optimistic that there are going to be a handful of trades made. We're kind of in the same position right now that we were in last year where the Phillies had a lot of moves to make, but just complications prevented them from doing it.
I'm glad you brought up the option on A.J. Burnett's contract because that brings us into our next topic, which is the options, the buyouts, the no trade clauses, everything on the back end of these contracts that Ruben Amaro gave these players. Now, not only is length a problem, but now, like I said, it's that added year or it's the major buyouts. Go through some of them and how they're hindering the Phillies in some of their moves.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, we have a graphic here, a list of these 5 guys. Cole Hamels, owed all this money, but he's also has 21 teams on the no-trade clause, as does Ryan Howard, as does Cliff Lee. Jonathan Papelbon can block trades to 17 teams. Even Marlon Byrd, a guy who signed like the first or second week of the offseason, 4 teams. He has a no-trade clause. He has a vesting option. Those vesting options, they kill you.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't look bad at the time of the signing, but as the contract goes on, you see how much it hinders your ability to trade a guy. Marlon Byrd is going to make $8 million in his very late 30s on the 3rd year of that deal if the option vests. And these are easy to vest options. We saw Jimmy Rollins' 3rd-year option vest the other night when he got to 1,100 plate appearances between 2013 and 14. So, these are major hurdles in trading guys. And this is a reason why Ruben Amaro's made this week very difficult for himself. The buyouts, too. These are some of the biggest buyouts I have ever seen. Ryan Howard, $10 million. Cliff Lee, $12.5 million. Those are just buyouts. So that implies that the Phillies are probably, with a guy like Lee, they're probably going to want to just pick up that $27.5 million year at the end, because why throw $12.5 million away?
All right, so outside of the Phillies, there's got to be other teams in the major leagues that give buyouts and options like the Phillies, right? The Yankees, maybe are they a team? Anyone else?
The Yankees give out no trade clauses maybe as much as the Phillies, but these buyouts are unique to the Phillies. It's not just, the $12.5 million I mentioned for Lee. Cole Hamels has a $6 million buyout. We're used to seeing buyouts of like $2 million, $3 million. These are like full contracts.
Right.
It's a full year of salary that the Phillies are giving out in buyouts. So this is just, there's so many prohibitive factors in this week of trades.
All right, and one guy that you mentioned obviously is Ryan Howard, who has just not had a great year. He had an all right Sunday, hit a home run, but over the last month or so, it's really been all downhill for Ryan Howard. So let's talk a little bit about him. There had been reports of his release last week, and we'll get to that. But talk about his numbers and how deceiving they are, especially in the RBI category.
Yeah, Ryan Howard, everybody who's backed him this year has talked about the RBIs. He's at 60-plus RBIs, ranked in the top 10 in the National League, but you got to look at the opportunities. You can't just look at the raw RBI total. You have to look at the conversion rate, okay? Yep. Ryan Howard, this season, has had more men on base than anybody in baseball. Ryan Howard has come to the plate with 313 men on base this season, and he's driven in 46 of them. That's not a very good rate.
Not good.
That's like a 14.5% rate of driving in the runners on base for you. Miguel Cabrera, the major league leader, is nearly twice that at 28%.
Wow.
So Ryan Howard, where he ranks in the game of baseball among guys who have had 100-plus opportunities, there's about 130 guys who rank ahead of Ryan Howard in conversion rate. So yes, he has the raw RBI totals, but there have been so many guys on base for him that if he was having one of his more productive years, the Phillies as a team would probably have scored like 25 more runs to this point.
That's a good point. And let's talk about the rumors of his release. Jim Salisbury, CSN Philly, was the one that had that scoop, but it never did happen that way. And Ruben Amaro came out and adamantly denied that would happen. But would that have been the right move? They owe him a lot of money, and just walk away, that might be tough.
I don't think it would have been the right move, because you still would have been on the hook for all that money. There's the potential that Ryan Howard signs on with an AL team and starts producing. And the main thing is, you don't have a guy waiting in the wings that's ready to step in and be an everyday player.
That's a good point.
If there was a young Ryan Howard, the way there was with that Jim Thome situation all those years back, then maybe it makes sense to drop Ryan Howard. But Darren Ruff is not a guy that you build your future around at first base. So I don't think releasing Ryan Howard would have been the right move in any event.
All right, quickly. I think that the right move is you bring him into spring training, you give him 2 months next year in a platoon type of a role, and you see what he has. If he gives you something, you keep him. If not, you cut ties. What do you think?
I think that, yeah, you give him that 2 months tryout, but the main thing to me is he can't hit cleanup. Bat him 6th, okay? To me right now, he's a Mark Reynolds, he's a Chris Carter of the Astros, a guy who has some power, but a low batting average and OBP and a lot of strikeouts. He can't be batting 4th. If he's batting 6th, maybe it works.
All right, when we come back here on Phillies Nation, Corey gets some batting tips. All that and more here on Phillies Nation. Welcome back to Phillies Nation. Corey and Pat with you, and not only is Corey a numbers guy, but he can swing the stick a little bit. I understand that you got some hitting tips.
Yeah, right? I caught up with my old friend Kevin Wilson at the Chandler Bat Factory in Norristown. He's a Major League Baseball hitting consultant, and we went over some hitting tips for some youngsters. Here's a look.
Okay, Kev, so I can't let you get out of here without giving us some hitting tips. So I want you to show me what are some of the main issues you see with younger players that you work with and the ways that you go about correcting them.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest issue I see with young players is when they come to me, they have this terminology that's a lot in the amateur ball and the amateur ranks, college all the way down, that I see where they are taught to let the ball get deep. And you hear major leaguers talk about it all the time, let the ball get deep, let the ball get deep. But the major league's mindset is a little bit different. They say that, but they tend to have the theory a little bit different, and the mindset a little bit different. Whereas the amateur players will let the ball deep and they'll literally get the ball deep, like by their belly button. So what I like to do with guys when they come in and I notice that the guy's letting the ball get too deep and he's getting handcuffed, I call it get his thumbs blown off, where he's getting that ball right here and it feels like the whole bat's about to break. I put this diagram on the ground. The amateur contact points are, if you stay in the box here, it's let the outside pitch get deep, here, let it travel. Middle pitch down the middle, catch it here. The inside pitch a little bit further out front, here. Now that's not the wrong way, I tell people all the time. That's not the wrong way. But what it is if we consistently get balls back in here, we have no chance of having any extension. If I'm gonna punch you, I'm not gonna punch you and land the punch here, I'm gonna be out here. Same thing applies here with contact points. So then I say, here's how the big boys play. Catch the ball inside, catch it out front. Catch the ball down the middle, catch it out front. Get the ball away from you, catch it out front. Jeter the other night in the All-Star game, if you guys slow that down and slow the angle of it, where all of a sudden, hey, you hit that double down the right field line, but if you got the side angle from it, where did he catch it? He didn't catch it back here. He caught it right off his front foot, or somewhere close to that, to be able to drive the baseball. So I always tell guys, say, hey, we're just gonna knock these balls out, and there are your contact points. It's not getting your body out front as much as, hey, hands hold the bat, hands have to be able to get to that ball out here. So I'll stay behind the baseball, but I'll get my barrel out to the contact point that way. So that's a big thing I see with the younger generation of players, is they're getting taught, power coach, to let the ball get deep, and then they wonder why they can't drive the baseball. Once they get their contact points back out here, that's that power they've been yearning for.
Well, if you're a young player out there, I hope you soaked all that in, because that's some professional advice from Kevin Wilson, hitting consultant to the stars, to some of the top prospects both locally and nationally out here at the Chandler Bat Factory in Norristown. Kev, thanks for joining the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Corey. I really appreciate it.
And make sure you guys listen to KW Radio. It's launching August 1st?
August 1st, absolutely, on iTunes. Check out kwbaseball.com for more details.
Send it back to the field house.
All right, Corey, good stuff there. Not bad at all.
Yeah, Kevin Wilson is one of the most well-connected men in all of baseball. Good friend of Charlie Manuel. We'll see more from that coming up later in the week.
Yes, we will. Let's go to our favorite segment. Well, it's my favorite segment. It's By the Numbers. It's presented by BQ Basement Systems. Call them today. They'll give you a free estimate on your house, and they have flexible payment options. So why don't you start with Cliff Lee?
Okay, Cliff Lee, 21 hits allowed in 10 2/3 innings since coming back from the DL. You know what his opponent's batting average is this season?
It's not good, is it?
It's the highest in the National League among pitchers with at least 75 innings. Cliff Lee's opponents have hit 309. Mike Minor is second at 308. This is the same guy, Cliff Lee, who from 2011 to 13, his opponents hit 238. So we're looking at nearly a 70-point difference from Cliff Lee.
All right, let's go from the bad of Cliff Lee to the good of Cole Hamels. 116 pitches, 90 strikes against the Giants on Thursday. Check this out. Hamels, the only pitcher this season to throw 90 strikes in a game. Only 4 other pitchers have thrown 120 pitches or less and 90 strikes or more in the last 10 years. Wow. Ben Sheets, Kurt Schilling, both in 2004. Cliff Lee did it in 10, and Homer Bailey in 2013.
Cole Hamels also the first Philly in recorded history to throw 90 strikes in fewer than 120 pitches. It's pretty impressive.
It is pretty impressive.
You know what else is?
What's that?
Can you name the 2 NL outfielders who have 20 home runs, 20 or more home runs?
Marlon Byrd.
Yes.
And Giancarlo Stanton.
Yeah, that's pretty elite company.
That is
Through
elite
Sunday,
company.
there were only 2 National League outfielders with at least 20 bombs, Stanton and Byrd. Marlon Byrd has been one of the top free agent signings in all of baseball, one of the most consistent power bats in any league.
We're going to talk about him a little bit later
we
on,
are.
but how long are these games going throughout Major League Baseball? Not only with the Phillies, they had a 5.5-hour game the other night. The Phillies are playing their games at an average of 3 hours and 12 minutes. The only teams with longer games are in the American League and the Los Angeles Dodgers. It's that long, and it's getting tiring. Seattle and San Diego, the only 2 teams to play games under 3 hours at 2 hours and 59 minutes. That's their average time. And 3 games this year for the Phillies of more than 5 hours. 10 games over 4 hours this year. It's just taking too long.
I mean, we got spoiled in 2011 when you had Lee and Hamels and Halladay going out and pitching 2-hour and 30-minute gems. And
Well, guess how many they played that year over 4 hours?
how many?
6. That's it. The entire year over 4 hours.
Well, you know who's having quick games nowadays is David Price. 8 of his last 10 starts, at least 8 innings. He has just been a workhorse. 183 strikeouts to just 21 walks this season. Legitimately one of the top pitchers, one of the top 5 pitchers in baseball this season. And he might not even be on the move anymore because the Rays keep winning. He might be off the trading block.
All right, let's go to our fantasy baseball segment brought to you by DraftStreet.com, the future of fantasy sports, free one-day leagues. You can win real cash. How about that? Who's your guy? Well, how about last week, though? You had Wade Miley.
I did. Wade Miley So I hope you didn't follow my advice. Wade Miley had a clunker against the Phillies. I think he allowed 5 earned runs in 5 innings. He had been hot to that point, but sorry about that, guys.
I went with Shane Victorino. Not that bad of a week.
Decent week, huh?
Pick him up. He's only owned, I believe, in 51% of Yahoo leagues. So who do you go with this week?
Okay, this week I hope none of my friends are watching because I want to pick this guy up, so I hope they don't beat me to it. But I have Ken Giles, who's owned in just 6% of leagues. Ken Giles, nasty. One of the top relievers in baseball right now. I think he has like 25 strikeouts to just 4 walks in 17 and a third innings. And Jonathan Papelbon, if he is on the move, Ken Giles is going to be one of those second-half closers better than pretty much everybody that you can get. Koji Uehara sticks out as an example last year, a guy who came on in the second half and was one of the top relievers in the game.
Wait, your friends watch the show, right?
Yeah, they do, but I hope they don't follow that advice.
Well, they better watch. I've got Stephen Vogt from the Oakland A's. They just seem to have all these catchers that hit 300. He's hitting 359 this year. He's only owned in 51% of Yahoo leagues. Go out and get him. That's it for our fantasy baseball segment brought to you by DraftStreet.com. More Phillies Nation coming right back.
Welcome back to Phillies Nation. I'm Ryan Williams here with Pat and Corey, and it's time for our Batters Inbox questions, where the guys debate your question and I'll pick the winner. Ready?
Let's go. Absolutely.
All right, our first question, who has been the best free agent signing this year? Pat?
I think it's Scott Kazmir from the Oakland Athletics. Give me this graphic so I can win this point. So far this year, 12-3, a 2.37 ERA, 116 strikeouts, and he's worth 2.5 WAR, which was 20th among pitchers in Major League Baseball before his start on Sunday. And he signed a 2-year, $22 million contract. That's Billy Beane at his finest. I think it's Scott Kazmir because of how much pitching means to a team. You can find outfielders that hit home runs all over the place, but it's really hard to find good pitching like Scott Kazmir.
I wanted to say Marlon Byrd on this answer because he has a lot of power. He's been one of the most consistent power bats in baseball, and he plays really solid right field defense. But I got to go Nelson Cruz just because they each make the same amount of money this year, $8 million, but Nelson Cruz's deal was only for 1 year. He's a guy that anybody could have had, and the Orioles were the team that made that low-risk move. Honorable mention goes to Kurt Suzuki, the Twins catcher, who was an all-star. Short-term deal, and he's really produced.
You might agree with me. I'm going with Corey on this.
Really?
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, fine.
Our next question comes from Natalie, who has it from a Phillies fan.
Hey guys, I'm here with Chris from Philly, and Chris wants to know,
which division in baseball is the best?
I don't think there's much debate here, so I don't know what Pat's going to say, but AL West. The only 2 60-game winners are in the American League West, the Athletics and the Angels. I think the Angels are 9.5 games ahead in the wild card race, so that's already sewn up for them that they're going to win that top wild card spot. They're just the most talented 2 teams in baseball, pitching, offense, defense. I think the Angels are going to win it all, so got to go AL West.
The AL West does have 2 teams that are about 25 games under 500 in Texas and Houston. I think it's still the American League East because of all the talent out there. The Red Sox still might be one of the most talented teams in the American League, and they're in last place in that division. Baltimore's at the top. They have Adam Jones, Chris Davis coming off a huge year. The Yankees, they still have talent top to bottom. Masahiro Tanaka's injured, of course, but the entire division, David Price, you can go through the Rays list. Will Myers, I know he's hurt, but there's great talent throughout the American League East, so I still think it's better despite those 2 teams in the West having better records.
I'm not favoring Corey this week, but I'm agreeing with him because the Angels are my World Series pick.
Wins already? All right, fine.
Our last question, if you were to bet on a team to turn around soon, who would it be? Corey?
I'm going to go with the Chicago White Sox. Maybe an under-the-radar team, but when we asked that question, who are one hitter and one pitcher you would build your team around, I think one of the top 5 answers would be Chris Sale and Jose Abreu.
Yeah, that's a good one.
2 young guys, manageable contracts who are just killing it right now. If the White Sox can just make some augmentations here and there, add some players at other spots, I think they can be really led by Abreu and Sale, and that's a team to look out for in the future.
I'm going to go to the north side with the Chicago Cubs because Theo Epstein, you always have to trust in him as a general manager, and it's been a long, arduous process to get some good prospects in that system. But take a look at how many they have in the top 50. This is Keith Law's top 50. They have 5 different guys. Addison Russell is at the top. So I think it might be a few more years, but they've been bad for so long that I think it's finally going to be the Chicago Cubs' time.
And you're going to win this argument.
I will take that point.
I give him a point just for using the word arduous.
I did slip that in there.
Nice.
Well, that wraps up our Batters Inbox questions for this week. Have a question for us? Leave it first on our Facebook and Twitter page. Don't touch that remote. More Phillies news is coming right up.
Hi, I'm Tommy Green. Today we're going to talk about the legs and how and their use and importance to a pitcher, during his motion. to me, it's the fundamental of pitching is you got to be on your legs. You walk around on them every day. They're the strongest thing you got. Your arm's not the strongest thing in your body. Your upper half is not. You walk around on your legs. You got to stay balanced and stay back. We do a lot of running to prepare for this and use our legs. So you need to use them during the motion. The biggest thing to me, when you use your legs, you have to be unhinged and not tight. You got to be that way. Once you start down the mound, you can use that back leg to drive down the mound and get you closer to home plate. You just don't fall to home plate, in my opinion. You drive to home plate a little bit. So, and it takes pressure off your arm, totally. I mean, if you use your legs, it takes pressure off your upper part, which is your arm and your elbow and everything else. So, young guys, do your running. Don't complain to your high school coach or your coach. Do your running, exercise, be prepared to pitch physically, and it'll help you in the long run.
Thank you, as always, to Tommy, Corey, and Pat with you. And on Sunday, it was the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Frank Thomas, Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, Bobby Cox, Tony La Russa, and Joe Torre. That's a pretty good company right there. And Frank Thomas is one guy that always stand out to Phillies fans because they took Jeff Jackson in the first round of the 1989 draft over Frank Thomas, and he hit 521 home runs.
I wish we could say like former Philly Frank Thomas. Wouldn't that be amazing? Maddux and Glavine win, and this was one of the most exciting classes in recent memory. Just want to real quick go to Maddux and Glavine. Sure. From 1990 to 2002, their prime against the Phillies. Maddux 22-10, Glavine 21-9. Maddux a 2.41 ERA, Glavine a 3.29. Tom Glavine, though, the most recent memory Phillies fans have of him is a positive one. Yeah. September 30th, 2007, Glavine starting for the Mets against the Marlins allows 7 earned runs in a third of an inning, put the Mets in a huge deficit, and gave the Phillies a lot of confidence as they won the division on the final day of that 07 season.
All right, let's go to our Twitter trivia. The hashtag is PNTrivia at Phillies Nation. It's brought to you by Scheib Vintage Sports. Last week, only 2 active left-handed pitchers have a higher B-ref WAR than Cliff Lee's 43.6. Could you name them?
I'm going to guess Burley and Sabathia.
Burley and Sabathia is correct. You looked at that, didn't you?
I did.
You did. I knew you did. This week's Twitter trivia question is, in the last 30 years, so since 1984, who has the most stolen bases in a season for the Philadelphia Phillies?
Beats me.
No idea?
No idea.
All right, well, if you know, hashtag PNTrivia at Phillies Nation. And let's give the thank yous all around to the guys at 2020 behind the cameras and Brian Michael as well. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Tommy Green and Kevin Wilson, for giving us some tips as well. And it's Phillies Nation's 10th anniversary last week. A huge momentous occasion. Look, we've come from a blog that was started by Brian Michael to a TV show.
Time has flown.
Time has flown. And don't forget, this week, later on in the week, Friday, it's our trade deadline special. You can catch that on the Comcast Network and Comcast Sportsnet. For Corey, I'm Pat. That's it for Phillies Nation. We'll talk to you later this week.